have some more.
No, gracias.
I asked if you would like more tamales.
See?
That's what I thought you said.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish. For this week, we're taking a look at the tamales from Coco. Once you've got a solid 12 hours set aside to construct your tamales, we need to start by soaking the corn husks. We want to soak these in room temperature water for at least 3 hours, if not overnight. Just separate the husks a little bit and place them in a large pot. Make sure that they, that they fit. Uh-oh. Time to break out the big guns, or pots, big pots. While those guys are soaking, we can get started on some of our fillings. I apologize for dressing down, but this was late the night before, and that's actually wanted to pick it up the next day. You might recognize what I'm doing here. I'm making a pretty basic chili paste out of a couple different kinds of dried chilies, in this case guajillo and pasilla chilies, and I'm also going to add heaping teaspoons of cumin, preferably freshly toasted and ground in a spice grinder, but it's late and I'm not trying to wake up Rashid. A good pinch of Mexican oregano, some salt, freshly ground pepper, and blitz into a smooth paste. Pretty close to what we use in our al pastor pork. Open this guy up, take in the beautiful smells, and set aside to cool completely while we deal with our pork. We're going to go with a small pork shoulder for this recipe. Make sure that you are working with appetizing pork, very important. Clean the meat from the bone, cut off the skin, and cut into about 2-inch cubes, which we're then going to place in a large Ziploc bag and cover in our marinade. Give it a little massage and fridge this for at least 3 hours. Or you could come to the shocking realization that you could just let the pork marinate in your cooking vessel. So I'm going to place this in a foil-lined casserole that I'm going to cover and fridge for at least 3 hours, or in my case, overnight. The next day, and I'm all gussied up for dinner, and I'm going to get started on making our tamale dough. I am weighing out 560 grams of masa harina, which is a kind of instant corn flour, and adding to it 700 milliliters of very hot water, giving it a good mix with a wooden spoon until a crumbly kind of dough forms. Set this aside and let it rest for 15 minutes while we start working with our lard. A lot of people freak out at the idea of lard, but it's actually not that bad for you, and it's what they use in OG legit shit tamales. And I'd imagine that's what the abuela in Coco is making. So we are whipping 375 grams of lard for 2 minutes in a stand mixer until it is light and fluffy, at which point we're going to add a half teaspoon of kosher salt and a teaspoon and a half of baking powder, mixing to combine before slowly adding our soaked masa. Add maybe a third of it at a time, beating and scraping down the sides of the bowl before adding the rest, beating again until a cohesive mass forms, into which we are going to slowly stream 1 cup of warm chicken stock, beating one more time to combine thoroughly and create our dough. Now this is a much thicker, fluffier dough than most tamale doughs, but they say if you drop a piece in cold water and it floats, you're good to go. And I think that all the air that we beat in there is going to make for a lighter, less dense tamale. Anyway, speaking of which, it's time to talk added back a little bit of the marinade. I'm also going to do some roasted poblano and cheese tamales. I roasted some poblanos straight over the flame on my stovetop, wrap them in foil, let them steam and soften up before we peel them. Now, at long last, it's tamale time. We're going to start by peeling off the carbonized exterior of our poblano peppers and cutting them into strips. I could just eat a giant bowl of these alone, but we're going to add some cheese. Oaxaca cheese, which is kind of like a Mexican mozzarella. We're going to tear the cheese in a thin, even layer over the top half of the corn husk, leaving a 2-inch border on each side. Stuff with your fillings and roll together so that the two sides of the tamale dough meet in the middle. Fold up the tapered end of the corn husk, and using 2 strips of corn husks that we're going to tie together in the center, we're going to make a little tie for tamale security. Snip the long strands for a prettier presentation, and look at that perfect little package. It takes a bit of practice, but you find yourself getting into a rhythm, and it becomes second nature after your 4th or 5th try. Repeat with some of the pork, and place them all standing up in the steam basket of a large pot. Cover the tops of the tamales with a couple stray corn husks. This is going to help concentrate the heat in the steamer. Fill with an inch or 2 of water, cover, and steam for about 90 minutes. If you find that the interior of your tamales are sticking to the corn husks, just steam them for another 15 minutes. Stack them up on a large plate so they stay warm, but let them rest for 30 minutes before digging in. This is going to help them firm up a little bit. And now, a solid 8 hours of work later, it's time to finally dig in. I'm going to have one of each. We've got poblano and cheese and pork stuffed tamales, but you could really put anything you want in here. Anything you would put in a taco, I bet, would work in here. I'm going to serve them with a slightly spicy, sharp, acidic salsa verde. You can check out my I Love You Man Tacos episode for how to make that. And guess what, guys? We've got another Clean Plate Award winner. These things can be prepped in advance, they freeze great after you've cooked them, and they're perfect for your Oscar viewing party, that is, if you don't eat them all yourself.